I wanted to return to this concept of severance because in addition to being the name of a very, very good TV show on Apple, whatever it's called, the platform, if you haven't seen it, I really recommend it. You might just resonate with it, partly maybe through this video if you watch it, well, you'll see. But severance, I think, is a key concept in the life of NI dominance, including INFJs, but NI dominance in general. You may have noticed that I have shifted a little bit of my discourse from just the INFJ to NI dominance. Maybe at some point I'll broaden it yet further, but still very much talking about INFJ experience. But NI dominance in general, INTJs should be included in this. I'm becoming more and more convinced of it. Severance is an important concept. In this book, The Ecstatic Soul, which is a look at INFJ personality, the new look, kind of philosophically inspired, pretty deep investigation of INFJ consciousness, the INFJ mind. You may have heard of it, you may have got the book. You can still get the book at the links below on Amazon. Check the reviews. It's got like 120 reviews and they're very positive, so maybe you want to get it. I don't talk about severance in this book. In this book, I talk about, in a sense, 4 basic modes of INFJ existence: alienation, haziness, prescience, and disembodiment. Okay, so something to do with how you relate to external reality, haziness, how you relate to others, prescience, how you relate to knowledge, and disembodiment, of course, how you relate to your own body. So a lot of these basic modes of experience are defined by the NISE axis, of course, so NI dominance and SE inferior. But I don't talk about severance. And in a sense, that can be easily explained. It can be easily explained by the fact that this is a look at the inside of the INFJ mind. And severance makes its appearance in this book, which looks at the outside of the INFJ mind, in a sense. I mean, I still talk a lot about the INFJ mind in the Infinite Soul, but it is about INFJ life in the modern world. So as its subtitle indicates, it's very much about how INFJs experience living in the world today, the hostility of that world, the oppression and sense of being smothered and choked that world often existentially imposes on INFJs, and how they can carve out niches for themselves of meaning, purpose, value, and significantly rich lives. In a sense, retrieving the meaning that often feels like it has been confiscated by modernist, capitalist, technological, means-end, cause and effect relationship and paradigms, right? Now, severance is a concept that belongs more to the Infinite Soul, because in a sense, I'm very interested in the existential structure of the INFJ way of being, right? What are the core aspects that define our existence in the world? And that is going to include features that are very much primarily impacted and influenced by the INFJ mind, okay? But there's also going to be features that are influenced by the interaction between the INFJ mind and the external world. Severance is one of them, because by definition means being severed, okay? And I'm firmly convinced that severance is a mode of existence, is a mode of being in the world that is really cardinal, unavoidable about INFJ life and INTJ life, and that, in a sense, how you choose to relate to severance is going to define the kind of INFJ you are, particularly in relationship to the 3 subtypes, okay? Also listed in the Infinite Soul. You know this. The INFJ who is adaptive submissive, that get along with other people, willing to suppress my NI individuality in order to get on with others. That's the subtype of the adaptive INFJ. Most, if not all of us, have been there at some point, because these types are not fixed. It's not like you're an INFJ, so you can't be an INFP, right? Like, those are reasonably fixed, but you can move from being adaptive to being solipsistic, which is the kind of flip side of the adaptive. I don't need anyone, I'm in my self-contained NI world and I reject everything else, kind of, if I were to kind of lay it on thick a tiny bit. For the solipsist, which is the second INFJ subtype, and then the spiritualized INFJ who has managed to bridge interaction with the outside world and living in the NI world, honoring both sides, being a fully functional INFJ in a sense in the world today. Maybe it's harder than it used to be, but it's the goal is still to achieve that. Now, in a sense, the spiritualized INFJ is precisely the INFJ who has managed to tame the feeling of severance, because severance is the sense of being torn between two worlds. Right? The NI world is calling for you. It's the womb. It's where you feel most comfortable. But then you have the world of external reality, of history, of human relationships, interactions, having to eat, having to follow your drives, having to find love, having to find work, which is the world of what Jung would call adaptation. Right? Not adaptiveness. That's the subtype of INFJ that we've discussed. You need to adapt to external reality in order to live. But you also need to remain in touch with your NI world, which is your world of inmost authenticity, the world of the archetypes. So how to bridge these two worlds that seem so different and are indeed so different is the key, in a sense, one of the key tasks for the INFJ who becomes aware of severance, of being severed between these two worlds, who's aware that this is one of the basic conditions of the way they feel about the world and about their existence. It's one of the primary ways of relating to the world is severance. It influences their relationship with other people because sometimes they don't seem like they're there. And it's often very painful because it feels like you don't have balance. You have one foot in one world, one foot in another world. That's severance, right? I'm someone who experiences severance in a big way, which is an indication that I really don't claim to be spiritualized, right? Because if I did claim that, it's really, sometimes I think of particularly like, the idea of being enlightened in Buddhism, and the idea, like Zen masters. There's a strong Buddhist theme of attaining an eternal state, right? You attain a state that no longer is going to change after that. You manage to vanquish change. I think there's a very strong resonance here with the idea that you vanquished severance, or at least you made peace with severance, so that you belong in two worlds and you're no longer feeling torn at a very kind of instinctive gut level. Okay. Of course, in a sense, you could really see the adaptive and solipsist approaches to being an INFJ as ways to cope with severance, and in a sense as a way to silence severance, because the adaptive INFJ is basically dealing with severance by siding with external reality at the expense, at the detriment of their NI world, whereas the solipsist is siding with their NI world at the expense and the detriment of external reality. So these are strategies for negotiating severance by just picking one side. So in a sense, like ignoring the call of severance, which is, because modes of existence, in the Heideggerian fashion, they're always calls for higher modes of being. And the higher mode of being is, of course, to get to a synthesis where you don't neglect one or the other, but you manage to spiritualize the connection into liberation. At least this is my view. But because this is a very tough and difficult process that involves a lot of suffering, of course, the spiritualized person is not going to forget about those experiences, and often you will find that in their humor. Their humor is often absurd. But it is very severed humor. Like the severance may have been reconciled in their lives, but you still find a lot of its echoes in their humor. It has a certain loving absurdity about it that I think really echoes the severed theme. So yeah, that's something that I really want to remind you of. Whether you're an INTJ or an INFJ, do keep in mind that severance, developed in this book, is a key theme of your existence. And if you feel the call of severance, don't necessarily think that you have to repress it one way, the adaptive way, or the other. Maybe the call for synthesis is the way to go. So you can get these two books at the links below, by the way, the prequel and the sequel. So if you're curious, check the links. This one needs more reviews. So if you have loved the book, if you read it, loved it, but haven't reviewed it, please drop a review. It helps with the referencing, helps a lot. And as you know, donations, Patreon support is lifeblood my channel to keep going, so that I can actually keep going into the future. Please consider making donations to my channel via my Patreon page. The link is below, and you can interact with me there. You can make suggestions for new content. I would love that. Please make suggestions. And I do some, young readings and things like that. So please consider supporting me, please. And thank you to my supporters. Okay, guys, see you soon. Bye-bye.